Okay, area of triangles and trapezoids. First, we're going to look at area of triangles. To find the area of a triangle, you take the area, which is abbreviated with the capital letter A, of a triangle equals 1/2 of the product. Remember that product is the answer to a multiplication problem of its base, which is a lowercase b, and its height, which is a lowercase h. So the formula that we would use when we're solving for the area of a triangle then looks like area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. Okay, looking at a triangle, the base of a triangle can be any of its sides. Okay, the height, just like in a parallelogram, is the perpendicular distance from the vertex opposite the base to the line containing the base. So if this is your base, we're forming a perpendicular line up to the vertex of the triangle, and that would be determined as the height. So let's use an example and find the area of a triangle. In example 1, we have a triangle. Okay, our very first step is to always write the formula. Since it's a triangle, we're using area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. Okay, our next step is to substitute in what we know. So we're going to keep 1/2. That always stays the same. Our base is going to be 10. And our height is that perpendicular line that extends to the vertex, which is 6.5. Okay, from here it doesn't matter what order you multiply in, so we could multiply by 10 and 6.5 and then take half, or we could take half of 10, which is 5, and then multiply 5 by 6.5. Okay, it doesn't matter what order you multiply in. So when we multiply out, we get 32.5 meters squared. Remember area, your units are always squared when we're finding area. All right, let's look at another example of finding area of a triangle. So again, our first step is to write our formula. Area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. Okay, your next step is to substitute in what we know. So in this case, our base is 7.5. It represents one of the sides of the triangle. Okay, the distance that's perpendicular to that base that forms a right triangle and extends up to a vertex is 8. So 8 is going to be your height. So I'm going to take 1/2 of the base, which is 7.5, times the height, which is 8. And again, it doesn't matter what order you multiply in. I would probably do half of 8, which is 4, and then 4 times 7.5, which is going to give you 30. So your area is 30 inches squared. We also need to be able to use the formula of finding the area of a triangle to find the height or the base of the triangle, just like we did with parallelograms. So let's look at an example of that. The area of a triangle is 60 centimeters squared. If the base is 12 centimeters, what is the height? So first step is always to write the formula. Since we're dealing with a triangle, its area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. The next step is to substitute in what we know. We know that the area of the triangle is 60. Okay, we keep 1/2. We know that the base is 12. And I know that I'm trying to find the height, so I'm going to leave that as h. Your next step is to solve the equation. And before I can solve for h, I can simplify. So I can take half of 12. So I'm going to write this as 60 equals half of 12 is 6 times h. And now I have a one-step equation to solve, and I solve by dividing by 6 on both sides. So I know that 60 divided by 6 is 10, and I know that I'm left with h. So I know that the height would be 10 centimeters, since centimeters is our unit. Okay, let's look at another example of this. So the area of a triangle is 36 inches squared. If the height is 12 inches, then what is the base? So since we know area of a triangle, we start with our formula for area of a triangle, which is area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. Your second step is to substitute in what we know. So we know that the area is 36. we keep 1/2. We're trying to find the base, so I'm going to leave b as the base, and I know that the height is 12. Okay, from here I can solve, but first I can simplify. So 1/2 of 12 is 6, so I can rewrite this as 36 equals 6 times b. Now I want to solve for b by dividing by 6 on both sides. 36 divided by 6 is 6, and I'm left with b on the other side. So I know that the base is 6 inches long. Okay, now we're going to move on to the area of trapezoids. The area of a trapezoid equals 1/2 the product of the height and the sum, which is the answer to an addition problem, of the bases. And since we have two bases, we use B1 and B2 to represent our bases in a trapezoid. Okay, so looking at this trapezoid right here, the bases are always going to be the two sides that are parallel to each other. It doesn't matter how the trapezoid is set up on your paper, which way it's rotated. If you can find the two parallel sides, the sides that are parallel to each other, those will always be your bases, base 1 and base 2. Okay, the height of the trapezoid is always the perpendicular distance between the bases. Okay, it's always the distance between those two parallel bases. Okay, the formula then that we use to find the area of a trapezoid is area equals 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. Now it's important to remember that we have to use order of operations when we're solving problems. So we're going to have to add those bases together, since those are in parentheses, before we can multiply the rest of our problems. So let's do an example finding the area of a trapezoid. Your first step is to always write your formula. So since we're looking at this figure and we can determine it's a trapezoid, I'm going to write area equals 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. My next step is to substitute in what I know. So if I can find the two parallel sides, I know that those are the bases. So I'm going to label this as base 1 and this is base 2. I know that the height is the distance between those two bases, so 7 is going to be the height. So now I can substitute in. I know that 1/2 times the height, which is 7, times base 1, which is 5, plus base 2, which is 12. And then from here, I just can multiply out and use order of operations. So first I'm going to add 5 plus 12, which is going to give me 17. So 1/2 of 7 times 17. And then from here I can multiply straight across. I can take half of 7, which is 3.5, and then multiply 3.5 by 17. Remember that it doesn't matter what order you multiply in. When I multiply, I get 59.5 inches squared. Let's try another example of finding the area of a trapezoid. So remember, first step is to always write your formula. So area equals 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. Okay, next I need to know what my bases are and my height is. So I find the two parallel sides, okay, and I label those as base 1 and base 2. From there, the distance between those two parallel sides is the height, so that would be labeled as the height. Now I can substitute in. So 1/2 of the height, which was 0.3, times base 1, which was 1, plus base 2, which is 0.5. From here, I need to add my bases together. So I get 1/2 times 0.3 times 1.5. Okay, and then from here I multiply out. You could take half of 0.3, you could take half of 1.5, or you could multiply these two together and then take half of your answer. When you multiply, you get 0.225 feet squared. Okay, now let's take a look at using the area of a trapezoid, the formula for that, and finding the height of that trapezoid. So in this problem, we have the area of a trapezoid is 55 feet squared. If the base have lengths of 12 and 10, what is the height? So just like we've been doing in all of our examples, our first step is to write the formula. So area equals 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. Our next step is to substitute in what we know. So we know that the area is 55, so I'm going to substitute in 55 for the area. Okay, I know that I'm trying to find the height, so I'm going to leave h as the height. And I know that the base lengths are 12 and 10, so I'm going to substitute in 12 plus 10 for my bases. Your third step is to solve the equation, and I can simplify before I solve. So first I'm going to add, I'm going to follow order of operations, so 12 plus 10 gives you 22. So I'm going to rewrite this as 1/2 times the height times 22. I can simplify a little bit more. I can take half of 22, and when I do that, I'm left with 55 equals half of 22 is 11 times h. And then from here we solve for h by dividing both sides by 11. When we divide both sides by 11, we get the height equals 5 feet. Let's look at one more example of that, and you may want to pause the video and try this one on your own and then come back to it. Okay, first step is to write your formula. So area equals 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. From here we substitute in. So I know that the area is 216 equals 1/2. I know that I'm trying to find the height, so I leave that as h, multiplied by base 1 and base 2. And the base lengths are 21 and 15. Okay, from here I simplify. So I'm going to add my bases together first. So I get 216 equals 1/2 of the height, and when I add those together I get 36. And I can simplify a little bit more by taking half of 36. Half of 36 is 18, so I'm going to rewrite this as 216 equals 18 times h. To solve for h, we're going to divide by 18 on both sides. I'm going to rewrite this over here since I'm running out of room. So I've got 216 equals 18 times h, and I'm going to divide both sides by 18. And 216 divided by 18 gives you 12. I'm left with h. So I know that the height of this trapezoid would be 12 centimeters. Okay, if you have any questions, please write them down and we'll go over them tomorrow in class.